Yeah, in the last session, what we have covered basics. We have
Basics.
debugged our Mule flow, and we have seen how the Mule event is getting generated, and then how it is getting traveled from one activity or one processor to another processor. There are some hidden things, right? Few hidden things are like who is actually executing these processors. Okay, so each processor is getting executed by different thread, unless if you don't have transaction. The transaction will execute the flow in a single thread. All the components, all the processors will be executed by single thread. Okay.
Okay.
Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I take this example, okay. So this is the flow we have executed. We have seen how to read the query parameters, how to read the URI parameters, how to read the header parameters. Now today we'll see how we can invoke this guy via flow reference. Okay, and we'll see that whether if I create a variables over here, those variables, those attributes are getting transferred to other flow or not. Okay.
Okay.
Again, it's not responding. I don't know what happened. Okay, so we'll try to invoke this flow, and we'll see whether we have seen within the flow the Mule event is getting transferred from one processor to another processor. Now what we'll see, we'll try to invoke this flow from, or from this flow we'll invoke another flow, and we'll see whether the same Mule event is getting traveled from this flow to that flow or not. Okay, via flow reference. Then we'll invoke the same flow via HTTP requester component, and we'll see that whether the Mule event is still getting traveled from the calling flow to the call flow. Okay, let's see. So let's add this. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a flow reference over here first. And in the flow reference, what I'm going to give, so this is this flow name. I'll go ahead and say, hey, your name is, I'll say your name is child flow. Okay, and inside the child flow, I'll just say right click, delete. Okay, so inside the child flow, what we'll do, we'll add set payload activity. Okay, we'll add set variable activity. Okay, in set payload, we'll go ahead and we'll add a simple object. So we'll say message colon. Okay, this one is last name. Here we'll go and we'll create one more variable, child flow var. Okay, and we'll give okay, let's have a look at it. Okay, so now save this flow.
Here we are giving hard-coded value, right? But in real, it should be like dynamic, right?
Yeah. I mean, based on requirement, what your child flow is supposed to do, whether it's reading some database, or it's getting data from some external service, those will be captured over here, and then it will get assigned to your payload, right? So right now we are checking. Okay, so this flow reference will call our child flow. You can call yourself also. Okay, if you want to call yourself, that is also possible from here. You can keep on calling yourself, right? So right now we are going and seeing that how flow reference is actually treating our request. So finally, what I'll say, I'll go back at the end and we'll have a logger activity. Okay, inside the logger, I'll simply log this is really bad.
Is it issue with the logger?
Looks like that.
Because
Last time also we
yep,
hit this
you
logger
click the logger and yeah, we face the issue. Can't we see you right now?
no.
So the caching is not on in this one, because whatever we have like worked till now, and if we forgot to save until that time, it should be something like that. It remains in
No.
cache or something.
Unless you save, it won't. No caching. Okay.
Mm, we don't lose.
As you mentioned, we'll save it. Okay. Okay. So in the logger, what I'll go ahead and I'll say okay. So let's save this and debug it. So we'll put a breakpoints at multiple location. So here our intention is to see, okay. So whatever mule event is getting generated over here is the same mule event is getting transferred to the child flow, and whatever child flow is making changes, it's setting payload, it's setting variable, what happened to the existing mule event, okay, whether this payload is getting overridden over there, whether this variable is getting added or it's removing those variables, all those things we'll see one by one here. Okay, that's the intention of this demo. Let's go ahead to our postman now. Okay, so I load a postman, and from the postman, meanwhile the postman is getting loaded, I'll quickly go ahead and bring my whiteboard. So from my parent flow, I'm calling child flow like this. Okay, so already I have a mule event. The moment I'll trigger from this activity, this flow, okay, so mule event will have some state. Okay, so we'll see those states. Okay, so there'll be attribute section, there'll be payload section, there'll be a variable section, and then finally there will be a error section, which will be hidden. Okay, it won't be there in your mule unless you have errors in your flow. Okay, payload vars errors. Now let's go ahead and have a look at it. Okay, so we'll update this, keep on updating. Okay, so if I go to my postman now, okay, so let's go ahead, this is our URL, right? We'll trigger this, it's waiting for my response. So if you look at right now, the the Mule event structure. So we have headers, CT. If I go to my query parameters, I have query parameter. And then if I go to my URI parameter, I have URI parameter. Okay. And here I have created one variable. So that is a part of my var section. Okay. So last variable we have created as part of flow execution. Now after this, let's have a look at it. So right now we have payload, right? Key and colon value. Now after this activity, I told you, right? So transform activity has ability to change the payload inside my Mule event. So right now, if I go ahead and if I say, what is the payload right now I have key colon value right now. Okay. Now, when I say next activity, I said next activity. Now have a look at my payload. See here, what happens? My payload in my Mule event is overridden. So this object is overridden, and now I have all that new object called city, Chennai, then name, colon, Ashish, and then something, right? The employee ID. Employee ID 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So clearly we see that the transform activity which has the data script, that data script changed our payload. And if you look at the data script, inside the data script, if you open the code, we are actually uploading, output will be payload. So whatever output is generated by the script, that will get stored on payload. Okay, in the dedicated session, we'll see what all we can set it here. We can set variables, we can set here attributes, we can set even payload. Okay, in data script. Okay, but right now we are loading into the payload only. If I load the output of this script into a variable, then my payload would have not changed. Right now, the reason behind that change inside my Mule event, this key colon value got overridden by this output because of this reason. There is no magic. Okay. So transform activity doesn't mean that always it will change the payload. No. What you are selecting as output, whether you are selecting as output or whether you are selecting as a, you can go ahead here, you can select as a payload or attribute or variable. Based on your selection, the output of transform activity will get loaded in that Mule event. So we have 3 sections in the Mule event, right? Right now I'm saying load the output of this transform activity into the payload. That's the reason only payload got changed. Is there anything changed here? Is there anything changed? Attributes are changed? No. See here, my headers are having still same values. My query parameter is having same value. My variables also same value. Only changed is payload because I have that default selection. The output of my transform activity, the data script, is become the payload, and that payload is overridden inside my Mule event. Is that clear now?
Yep.
Okay. Now let's look at now this Mule event has those 3 things: query parameter, header parameter. So we have query parameter, we have headers, we have URI parameters. All 3 are there. In the variable, we have one variable called last name.
Yeah.
And is equal to, this is the last name we have. Right now, this is the status of our Mule event. Let's go ahead and say next activity. Where it will go? It will go to the next flow, child flow. See, it's going over here. Now, what is the status? What is the state of my Mule event? Is the same Mule event, transfer or, traveled from my parent flow to child flow? Let's have a look at it. What is there in the payload? Yes, I can see the payload which was generated in my parent flow and added to the Mule event. It's there. What happened to the variables? Yes, variables are there. As it is, this variable was created inside my parent flow, right? And in the attribute, is there any change in the attribute? No. In the header, I could see 10 headers are there. One of them is my custom header. In the query parameters, I could see my query parameter. And in the URI parameter, I could see my URI parameter. Is this clear? The point of showing this is if I trigger a child flow via flow reference, my Mule event, whatever state of Mule event at that point, that will get traveled as it is to the child flow. Clear?
Okay.
Okay. So now in the child flow, I'm setting a payload. Okay. So I took, now I'm not using transform activity. I'm using set payload activities. The set payload activities always set the payload in the Mule event. Now, if I say next activity, have a look at it. Now, what happened to my query parameters, header parameters, URI parameters? Nothing, no change. But my payload got changed. See what is there in the payload? See, message equal to hello world. My payload got changed. Right? In the payload, I have added something key value. Now see, my payload got changed. Message equal to hello world. Okay, so now if I go back and again update my diagram, so this part is overridden by message is equal to hello world. Now we'll see, okay? We'll see that. Now I made a change in my child flow. Very carefully, Kunal, okay? Because these are the certification questions, okay? If I go to the child flow, if I create the variable, is that variable will come back to my parent flow? Okay, these are all certification questions. These are basics, but from the basics only, they will ask a lot of questions. Because this everything is hidden, right? It's not anywhere mentioned that, or it won't show you pop up, hey, your Mule event from parent flow is getting traveled to the child flow. Okay, no, we need to debug and see. Okay, that's what we are doing. Is there anything change in the variable right now? No. Okay, now let's go ahead, go to the next activity inside our flow. Now what happened? I am going to create a variable here.
I cannot hear you.
Not able to hear me?
I cannot hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yep. Now I can.
Okay. 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 Yeah, let's come back. Okay. So now next activity in my flow, it's setting variable. Now let's see, when I set the variable here, is this changing the, is this going to update this variable completely, or it's going to append to the list? Okay, so if you remember, I'm going to create a variable called child flow var. Okay, let's see whether it will remove this guy or it will append to this list. So if I go here and say next, so this will execute this activity and come back to this logger. Okay, we'll come back to this logger. So we'll see both the thing. Whatever I have made a change to Mule event in child flow, whether that is getting reflected in my parent flow also or not. Okay, so if I say next activity, it will come to my logger activity. Okay, here in the parent flow. Now what happened? From flow reference, we went to child flow. From child flow, we came back to parent flow. Now see the latest state of my Mule event. Is there anything changed in my attribute? No. See, so that means if I triggered via flow reference, okay, there won't be any change in the attributes, whether you're calling or coming back to your flow. No change. We didn't notice any change over here. Okay, unless you literally go and in the child flow, you change the attributes. If you don't change the attributes, those attributes will travel to your child flow and come back to your parent flow as it is. Is that point clear? Attribute part. Okay. Payload. Again, if you are changing the payload, then only it will get changed. Otherwise, as it is, the payload will travel your child flow and come back to the parent flow. If you are setting variables, then your variable list will get appended. See here. The child flow var got appended. It won't change anything to existing variables. It won't delete anything. So now if you see the state of the Mule event, it's actually enriched, right? It went to the child flow. Whatever changes you made, those were added to the flow, added to the Mule event, and it enriched. Definitely, it overridden the payload. Payload, you cannot append, you cannot have multiple copies of payload. You'll be having single copy. Then it's up to you whether you want to keep the old value, then you need to append it manually. But when you're creating, keep on creating variables, it automatically appended. That's what we have seen now, right now in the state of our flow reference, right?
Okay.
Clear?
Can you show that the three values which can be changed, like payload, attributes, and
Yes. Okay.
yeah.
So now we will take that example. Okay. So let's go ahead and say end. Okay. So hope I'm clear now. The output of my postman will be this. Have a look at it. Message is equal to hello world. And why we are getting like this? Because it's a Java, right? Wait, I didn't change anything over there. I didn't say the output of my set payload has to be JSON or something like that. Okay. This is expected. You need to be very careful when you're writing, Java, your database script. Okay, we'll see that why that output is coming like that. Okay. Now instead of set payload, okay, instead of set payload here, what I'll do, I'll delete this and I'll drag we'll go to Mule design and we'll, as per your query, right? We'll go ahead here and we'll set three things here. Okay. So first I'm setting payload. Is that okay?
Yep.
We'll go ahead and we'll say JSON. Since it was not mentioned like this, that's the reason we have seen Java output over there, right? So now I can say message that has to be colon and in double quotes, hello world. Okay. This is the payload I have set it. Okay. Now I can go ahead here and click on this plus. So from my transform activity, I can create multiple outputs. So right now, first output is payload. Go ahead. Now we'll select attribute. Okay. And in attribute, so now
What is
see the
that
attribute.
inline and file option? What is that?
Yeah. We will talk to, we'll talk about that. Okay. So that's the reason I said, right? We have data view session for that dedicated. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll say this is also JSON. Let's go ahead and say JSON. And here I set attribute something like, let's say country colon India. Okay. Now I'll show you how it looks. Okay. Then go and plus. We can create variables. See here. Now I'll give a variable name. I'll say this is txn where, because I'm setting it here. Okay. Inline and file. Okay. So what happens? Inline means in your current file, a code will be there, data view script code. If you go and say file, it will get, exported or externalized to that file. It won't be here. Just reference will be there. You'll get an external file for your data view script. Okay. I'll show you that also in a dedicated session. Okay. So right now, let's go ahead with this option. So now in variable, I have given, so I'll just say, here JSON and I just say code and say txn value. Is that okay?
Okay.
Clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have set three things here. Now, if you look at payload, attributes, variable, three things. Everybody has its own script. For this guy, there is a different script. For attributes, there is a different script. Okay. And for variable, there is a different script. Okay. Now, if I'm making, okay, so we are making those changes over here, right? We are getting some output from here. We are getting some output from here. Okay. Let's go ahead and save everything. It will redeploy our code or deployment. I'll go to my design perspective and we'll look at the console. It's getting redeployed. redeployed. Okay. So let's go to the postman, send the request, come back here. Now have a look at it. Okay. So this guy will generate one output. We are aware of it. One variable got added. That is also we are aware of it. Now let's go to the next processor. It is a flow reference. It will come back here. So on this activity, if you see, there is no change. My payload got changed only, and it's calculating based on the, based on the script overwritten, and we have assigned this output to the payload. So my payload got changed. Now it will go to the child flow. Now inside the child flow, right now I have not executed this transform activity. Have a look at it very carefully. Okay. So in this transform activity, we have three outputs. One is change the attribute. Second is change the payload. Third one is change the variable. Okay. Now have a look at it. Now let's look at the attributes. Complete attribute got changed. See, everything is gone from here in the attribute section. See, in the attribute section, what you are getting? Country is equal to India. Everything is gone. Query parameter, header parameter, URI parameter, and all other activities are gone. Your payload, we have set the payload, right? Message equal to hello world. That is, and then we have created one variable called transaction var and transaction value. Now this guy actually added the variable. Now if I go back to my whiteboard, and from the transform activity, if I'm trying to, so in the transform activity, okay, three activities. Okay, and this is my Mule event. If I set the attribute in a transform activity, what happens? It actually overrides your attributes. Attributes. It will override it. Override. Whatever attributes are there, whatever you're setting here, that will become your attributes part. In the payload section, if you set a payload, that payload will be overridden here. Let's try to understand. Okay, this will also override. If you create a variable,
it will be appended. Yeah,
it will be appended. Append. So this we need to understand. Hope that is clear to you. Okay, what changes will happen to the Mule event? Okay, and this is your transform activity. Okay, forgot to mention. Three output will be generated from here: attribute, payload, and variable. And those will be, those will affect your Mule event. How? The attribute will completely override your attribute. Payload will completely override your payload. And vars will append your variables list. Clear? Now, whatever changes we make here, definitely those will be coming back to the parent flow. No question about that. Okay. So we have created one more variable here after the transform activity. Now that's the reason we are able to see three variables. Clear? Vars is a map. Okay. And in map, we'll keep on things adding.
okay.
Clear? Now flow reference is very clear. Transform activity is clear.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's go ahead and try to trigger. Okay. So try to trigger this flow via HTTP requester component. So I am going to remove this activity because I don't want it. Now I'll add HTTP requester activity over here. And via, so if you want to trigger this flow via HTTP requester component, definitely I need to have listener over here. Without that, I cannot trigger this flow. So I need to add a listener over here. Okay, I'll use the same listener and I'll use a path here. Child flow. Okay, this is the path, child flow. So these two flows, I can independently trigger it from outside. Okay, so this flow also I can trigger it from outside. This flow also I can trigger it from outside. Okay, save everything. Now from this HTTP requester component, what I'll do, I'll trigger that flow. I'll pass right now direct URL here, HTTP, okay, colon, / it's running on localhost, running on port number called 8081, control V, child flow. Am I clear? Is there anything fancy here? No, right? Very
No.
simple.
No.
On this address, this flow is running. If I want to write the address of this guy, what will be the address? Just now you've seen in the here postman. Okay. Now let's go ahead and save this, and I'll try to run this. Okay. So already in debug mode. Okay. I'll add one more debug point over here. Add. And basically what we'll do, we don't need this, right? Remove module. Unnecessary. These guys are creating problem for me. Remove. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at our debug view, console. Okay, it's getting deployed. Okay, it's deployed, right? Okay, so I'll stop it because I have removed the modules. Okay, so unnecessary, I don't want these modules in my flow.
Okay.
Okay, so it will clean those modules. No need to load those modules because I have already removed. If you're changing any module, if you're adding any module, you need to redeploy the, you restart actually. Okay. If you're making any code changes in the flow, that's fine. It will do hot deployment. But if you're making module level changes, then please go ahead and restart. Okay, so let's wait for the console. So meanwhile, we'll try to trigger the child flow from postman : / localhost : 8081 / control V. Okay, if my flow is deployed, yeah, it's deployed. If I go to my postman and if I trigger it, see here, directly I'm able to trigger this guy. If I go here now and say next, if I come back to my postman, see, I'm able to see the message equal to hello world properly, right?
This we have added in the payload, right?
Yeah, we have added over here. Okay. Now I'll talk about little bit about this listener also in a moment, because why we are able to see the payload properly here. Why, how come this status code 200 is coming over here? Okay. Yeah, that we'll discuss, okay, in a moment. But now our intention is to trigger this guy and see that whether the Mule event is getting traveled from here to here or not. Okay. And from here, when it is going back, what it's taking back to the flow. Now, when we are triggering, okay, so let's try to understand. Okay. When we are, so let's say this is a flow. This is a flow. There's a flow 1. This is a flow 2. Again, this is a certification question. Okay. So if I trigger the flow 2 from flow 1 via flow reference, then this call is treated as in-house call. In-house call within boundaries call. Within boundaries, okay? The same call if I do via HTTP requester, this call is treated as outgoing call. That means crossing my boundary limit. Crossing your boundary limits. Okay.
Can we invoke both the way?
We can invoke both the way. We have seen just now, right?
Yeah, from outside and from inside
Yeah.
at the same time.
Same time. Yes, we can. Same time.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's see. We have already seen via this flow reference. Now we'll see this. And we'll see the behavior change. Okay. So I have a mule event here. Okay. This mule event will be as it is inside this flow, and new mule event will be created here. Because this call is going outside of my boundaries. Let's have a look at it. Okay. Now let's go to the postman and trigger the first flow, which is a parent flow. Let's go ahead and trigger it. Now it's waiting for my intervention. So let's see. Next activity, your request. Now on this activity, let's check the or mule event status. Okay. State. See attribute section. I have all my attributes, my header attributes, my query parameters, and my URI parameters. All three are intact. Okay. Now payload is this. See, this is the payload which is generated over here on this activity, and variable which is generated on this activity. Now next activity, what happens? See here, from here I reach to this guy. Now where is my variables? No variables. What happened to attributes? All are lost. See, no attributes. Is there any header parameter, query parameter? No. Nothing. Have a look at it. That means the mule event won't get travel when we are hitting or triggering flows by using HTTP requester component. That is the understanding from here. Okay. Now, whatever changes I'm doing here. So now I got a new mule flow here. See, mule event, sorry. I have these properties now. Attribute. The correlation ID is coming as it is here. See, 40. I forgot to mention that. Okay. So correlation ID will come as it is from here, because to track from the parent flow where all I go. So that thing will get tracked by using correlation ID. In the next call, I'll show you that. Okay. So whether the same correlation ID is coming here or not.
Okay.
Okay. Now payload, nothing is there in the payload. Now why? Because from this HTTP requester activity, okay, I didn't pass anything. I didn't pass header. I didn't pass any query parameter. I didn't pass any URI parameter. I didn't pass any body. That's the reason they complete the request, right? From here, the request reaches to the child flow. Didn't bring anything. So I need to explicitly pass those values here. Okay, Kunal, we need to keep in mind, unless I pass these values. See here, still I'm passing payload over here, and the payload value was this guy, right? Whatever payload. Can you guess why the payload is not propagated or traveled from parent request to the child? Can you guess anything? From here, I have called. So let me go to the okay, I'll just take the screenshot. Okay. So let me explain. Okay. So from here, the call went to the internet. Okay, and via network, it reaches to this guy. Now, I have a mule event over here. In that mule event, there are attributes. There is a payload, and there are variables. Attributes cannot travel, variables cannot travel, payload can travel. Okay. attributes cannot travel. Okay, variables cannot travel. I cannot pass variable from parent flow to the child flow via HTTP requester component. No way. Attributes, yes, I can do that, but I need to do manually. Manually, I need to do. Payload. So from here, I got some payload. And there was a setting also in that you can send the payload, but in the requester component, by default, get method was selected. And get method won't carry any payload, any body at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason. That's the reason in my child flow, I'm not able to see anything in the payload. In the next call, we'll change our method from the get to post, and then you'll see only we'll change the method. Then you'll see the payload is getting populated over here. Okay, that's my point. That's where I'm pressing the button. Okay, so right now payload is empty. I'll go ahead and change the method over here. If I show you the, see here, default get method is there. If I change this get method to post method, automatically the payload which is selected here, this body, right? It will carry this payload to the child flow or child. I should not say child flow now. It's an external service. It's a service call.
Okay.
Okay. It's no more flow. It's a service which is running right now. In the previous demo, there was no listener over there. That's the reason it was only a flow, which cannot be triggered independently, which cannot be triggered via HTTP requester component, which can be triggered only via flow reference. But if you have HTTP listener in your flow, still you can trigger that via flow reference. Okay, you can trigger via flow reference also. You can trigger via HTTP requester if you have listener. Okay, now let's go to the next activity. Hope is that point clear?
Yes.
Few takeaways from here. Mule event as it is own get traveled. Okay, you need to set those attributes. You need to set the body. You need to set those query parameters, URI parameters. Okay, then only the body also will get traveled over here. If your method is post, put, or patch, get method won't give you any body to the call flow. Okay, hope that is clear. Next activity, see here, it's throwing error because the timeout, right? So it will wait for some time and then it will time out because we were waiting here. That is expected. Okay, so quickly we'll go ahead and see. And if you see the output over here, it will be throwing error, timeout exceeded. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the, now I have given a post method. If you remember, post method. Okay, let's go ahead quickly. We'll do this. Okay, so we'll go to the we have saved the changes, right? So it will get redeployed. Just wait for that redeployment. It will redeploy that changes. Okay, so only see socket and HTTP module is there now. So let's go to our postman, trigger it. Quickly we'll go now. Okay, this time we won't wait. Okay, so let's go ahead. Now next activity. See here now payload is coming, right? Because of the post method. Clear? Now if I go to my,
got it.
Yeah, see, yeah, so time exceeded, very less time there. Okay, so we can change this time timeout, and we can see that. Okay, so where you can set the timeout, go to this activity, go to advanced here. Response timeout. Give some more time. Okay. It's deployed now. Let's go here, send, come back here, Mule debugger, next activity. Now if I wait for some time here also, it will wait. Okay, and now it will properly go here. Still 3000 is, it's, oh man. Okay, but you can see now one more thing. Okay, so fortunately we got one more scenario to show you that. Now see, since the error got occurred, we can see the error object is added over here in my Mule event. See here, attribute section, payload section, variable section, and now error section also added. Okay, in error sections, all things will be mentioned. Okay, so error type will be there, HTTP timeout. It will have hierarchy. Okay, so parent of all is mule:any. Under that, you will be having specific. So this HTTP is a child of mule. Okay, it will be having hierarchy. What is the exception actually? Okay, so the timeout exception, time exceeded. Okay. Okay, so we need to go manually and set those attributes. Okay, so if you go here in the HTTP requester activity, we can go ahead and in the request, you can, in the general section, can go ahead and set those headers. Okay, query parameters here. Now, quickly we note, okay, so one more time, I'll go ahead and trigger my flow to show you that. Now, what is the correlation ID? See, please note down, okay? 5520 or just first string 215755520. I didn't pass anywhere, right? It will go to this, it will go here and see 215755550. So in Mule4, the correlation ID is getting populated or propagated automatically. We don't need to do anything for this. So you can think about it. This is your experience API. It's triggering the process API automatically. So definitely via HTTP requester component will trigger, right? Automatically that correlation ID is getting transferred to your process API. This is also certification question. Okay, whether correlation ID is getting transferred from your experience API to process API or not, or you need to explicitly pass it. The answer is you don't need any code change. Automatically will get propagated to your downstream APIs. Okay. So now what we are going to try is, so we are going to try, you said, right, whether if there is a listener, can I trigger that via flow reference or not? Simple. Okay, I'll go back. That scenario also will try quickly. So I have flow reference in front of your. Okay, before that, let's stop this flow first, right? So okay, so after this, I'll add a flow reference. In the flow name, we'll add a child flow and we'll quickly see that. Okay, so save everything. It will deploy your flow, and this time it will be a hot deployment. Because server is already created, it will just redeploy the application. Yes, it's deployed. Let's go ahead. Main flow, I'm triggering, right? Now it's coming over here. See, now if I go to the next activity, our intention is to just see that whether it's going there or not. See here. Now it's directly hitting this activity. Okay, that's the reason it's not creating any new Mule event. New email event will be created only when if somebody is reaching this listener. How you can reach this listener? Directly from the postman or from the HTTP requester component. So whenever you go to the source section, then only the new Mule event will be created. Okay, if you're directly hitting this processor activity, then new Mule event won't be created. Okay, so now it will go from here, again it will come here, and so next activity is here. It's actually coming via listener now this time. Okay, and next. Hope that is clear. Right?
Yep.
You can have flow reference, you can have both SRD requester component.
Okay.
Okay, but one thing I wanted to clarify here, let me quickly go and clarify that. So if I take this scenario, okay, what happens if I'm using flow reference? Okay, whatever Mule event I have here, that Mule event as it is get passed on, but your control will go to this activity directly from here. Okay,
Yep.
so both will get carried. If I am using this activity, whatever Mule event I have, Mule event 1, okay, that will be as it is over here. This activity will call listener first, and from listener, new Mule event will be created here, event 2. And whatever is coming in as part of request, okay, definitely when you are sending, that is a request. So whatever is there in the request, okay, so from the request, let's say you are sending headers, you are sending query parameters, attributes, okay, if you're sending body, okay, so attributes and body only will be coming as part of request, and that will get loaded in this event. Okay, so this attributes, like whether it's a header attributes, query parameters, or URL parameters, will get loaded in this section, which is my attribute section, and body will get loaded in my payload section. If your request is post, very careful. If your request is get, then its body will be empty, null. Okay, in my payload, nothing will be there. And new Mule event variable sections also will be empty. Nothing will be there. Okay, clear?
Yeah.
When
But when they will get back to the main flow.
yes, that's what the point I'm saying. So from this activity, okay, it will go to the listener. Okay, I'm going to discuss this point very carefully now. And from here, okay, it will come back to the parent flow. So next activity. Actually, it will come to this activity only. Then once the part is done, it will come to the logger, right? Now what will come from here? Again, from here, only the payload. From this guy, only response will be coming, and that response will be nothing but the payload. Okay. Now, let's have a look at it. Is this clear? Response will be coming as a payload only. By default setting I'm talking about right now. We have not changed anything at this listener level. Clear?
Yeah.
The new Mule event, whatever event was created as part of child flow, that will be as it is over there. Nothing will be coming from there to the parent flow. What will be coming back? Only payload. Okay, to the parent flow. Okay, now let's come back quickly. I have 10 minutes. I'll finish this off. So now if you go to the listener, very carefully, okay, very important part. Listener, so if I come back to my, yeah, HTTP listener is a very important activity in your flow. Okay, now when you're executing the flow, these are the activities. These activities can, the end in success or failure. Only two scenarios are possible, right? Correct? Now, if this flow, this is your flow. If it is success, then HTTP listener, they have two sections here. In listener, there is a OK section and there is an error section or failure section, in other words, we can say. If your flow executed successfully, it will go to this section. If your flow executed in failure, it will go to this section. And then listener will decide what response I supposed to send back to the client. This client could be your HTTP response requester activity, or it could be your postman, any REST client. Now you see here, when your flow executed successfully, the status code is defined as 200 here. And the response, right? From here also you'll get response, from here also you'll get response. The response is set is at payload. In this section, if there is an error, the default right now error code is 500, and the body for this response, error response, is error description. This is the default setting right now. I can show you. That's the reason I told you, right? In Postman, how come you see 200? How come you see 500? These are default settings right now in my listener, in my HTTP listeners. Let's have a look at it. Is this clear?
Yep, you got it.
Flow can execute in two status, right? Success and failure. How come listener is getting listener is deciding which response I'm supposed to send? So this mapping is there. The success will get mapped to this section, and error will get mapped to this section.
Okay.
Listener will pick whichever section executed, it will send that result back to the caller. Now have a look at it. If you go here, look at the listener configuration. So if you see responses, there are two sections here. Let me maximize it. See here, response, OK section, and error section. Now see in the response, what is setting? Payload. Now in error response, what is the setting? Description. I can go ahead and change it to the payload directly. Now if I go ahead and change payload, here, in this case also you'll get a payload as a response. Now header, if you see here, status code, if nothing is there, it's a 200. Now I can change this. I can say 400 in case of success scenario. I can say here 404 in error scenario. I can hard code it. Okay, let's go ahead and let's success scenario, it can't be 400, but for my point of view, let's make it 201. 1 is success. Okay, so these are now custom settings. I did it. If nothing is there, what will be the status code of success scenario? 200. What is the error scenario status code of error response? 500. 500. Now let's go ahead and save it. Okay, I'm just intentionally I'm doing it, okay, to explain you. Let's go ahead and save it. And this time what I want to do, I want to remove this. I don't want this. Okay, I don't know how to do that. Okay, so remove this, and simply I want to trigger something wrong URL. Okay,
S, you can add S.
Yeah, nothing is running on 8082 right now, right? Save everything, and let's have a look at it now. So it will deploy. I don't want any breakpoint also. Okay, so let's remove the breakpoint. Really not interested in breaking my flow right now, or waiting for my response. Remove breakpoint. Okay, so let's me see. Yeah, it's deployed now. Let's go ahead and trigger the same flow. Is it waiting for my response? Okay, so it's errored out, right? Okay, good. Go. And now have a look at my response. What is the response coming? See, 404 and the payload in error scenario. Got it?
But yeah, it gives the payload, right?
Yeah, payload, because I configured that way.
Yep.
If you see this listener, listener, what is the default? That's the reason I keep both the listeners. If you go to the responses, what is the setting? Error description. If I copy this guy, Control C, and paste it here instead of payload. Instead of payload in error scenario, Control V. Okay. Save everything. console. It will save and redeploy it. Okay, it's redeployed. Now if you go send, it will wait for this error. Okay, I'll say
Why we are getting error there for timeout? Right? Oh,
no, this is not timeout error.
okay, yeah, got
They are
it.
giving wrong
It's
URL, right?
yeah, okay, yeah, definitely.
Now here, see, where is the description? This error dot description. This one, this message will come as output for us right now. See here. Say if I say next, now see, go to the postman, see, exactly that error is coming. 404. Okay, so I configured 404. That's the reason it's 404 coming.
Yep. Otherwise, it will be 500.
500.
Got
Okay.
It.
So yeah, so that's the basic. Okay, that's the basic from this session. Hope you are very clear with all the activities, how the Mule event is getting traveled, how the error response is getting generated, how the success response is getting generated, what happens in case of if I trigger the other flow via flow reference, what happens when we trigger via HTTP requester component, what all will be getting traveled, what all will be coming back, all that thing I have discuss. Okay. One. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. One more point quickly I wanted to discuss. Okay, which is very important as part of basics. Okay. So this is clear.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now when you trigger, okay. So from this component we have triggered this flow. This flow. Now whatever payload is generated by this guy, that is coming as a response to this guy, right? Now this response is actually updating the payload section of my Mule event. Okay, so let's say this is my HTTP requester component. Before that, I was having activity which is actually generating payload P1. I have triggered this flow. This flow returned me some response, and that response, so the P1 was here only, right? Payload P1 was here only, right? In my Mule event.
Yep.
Automatically, this response actually override this P1 and become P2.
Yep. Which is we are getting from another flow.
Yeah, we are getting as a response. But what if I don't want to lose this P1? What should I do? I don't want to lose this P1. I want the output of this response somewhere else, not in this payload section.
Okay.
Okay. So there are multiple ways. I can set this P1 into variable and keep on tracking that variable. Or there is an automatic option here at this, whoever doing outbound call. Okay. So let me show
reference
you.
or
okay. So at the HTTP requester, I'll go to my Mule design flow. Okay, so on this activity, we have advanced and we can give a target variable. So I can say response, some variable name. Now what happens? This is called enriching. In Mule 3, we used to have different component for this. In Mule 4, we have target variable, and this output, this payload, right, will get stored in this variable. Now, whatever payload was generated by this guy on the logger activity, that payload will be there in our Mule event, and this output of this guy will be there in the variable called response. Let me show you quickly. Okay, so let's change this. Let's change the URL, right? So it's running on
8081.
8081. That's the reason I didn't change anything over here. Okay, to show you this one also. So now what happens? I'm going to save this in. So save this, and anyway, it's a debug mode. So I'll just put it here, breakpoint. Okay, and here also put a breakpoint. Everything is deployed. It will deploy. Go to debug mode and wait for the deployment. It's deployed now. Let's go ahead, trigger this. It's waiting over here, right? So now if you look at my, what happened? If you look at my payload right now, this is the payload right now, right?
Yep.
Now I'll go to next activity. It's going here, coming back. Now on the logger, have a look at it. My payload is as it is. No change. Okay.
Yep.
Now the new variable got created here. See carefully. See response variable. And the output which was coming from here, right? The response coming from here is getting stored in the different variable. Now I didn't lose any of the data, right? If I don't handle this way, I was losing this data, right?
Yep.
The previous payload. Now I have both the payloads. I have payload here also. I have payload here also. This is called enriching your Mule event. Okay, so instead of overriding that payload, I'm storing, so I can have multiple outgoing calls. All the calls I can store in the variables, and I can combine those results in final output. Okay, so this also again a certification question. So for example, I'll show you the scenario. Okay, so now this is the flow I have. Now I am getting a request. Okay, that request becomes a payload over here, P1. Now I am calling, so I am passing this P1 to my first external service. So this is HR. I want to pass the same payload P1. P1 I am passing over here. I want to pass the same payload to my service 2 also. There will be a service running over here too. So this is S1. This is S2. And finally, I want to generate a response, which is response of R1 plus R2. So I wanted to have response as request. What was the request sent? And what is the response I got it from? Service 1 plus service 2. Now tell me how I'll do it, right? So this is a transform activity finally. Now, if I don't use that target variable, what will happen? I got the request, which is there in the P1. The moment I pass that P1 to this request, it will hit this guy. The response R1 will come back and this P1 will get overridden. Right? Getting it? I won't be able to pass the P1 to this guy. If I'm trying to pass the payload, the R1 will go to this guy as an input.
But I didn't understand why we need to change the payload. Because if we are sending the payload from HR, right? P1, then why it should be over? Why we need this type of scenario? Like, what is the scenario?
Okay. Okay. I'll tell you the scenario. Okay. So you want to validate your incoming request by 2 external services. Okay. So one is validating your account, whether it's active account or not. And second one is validating whether you have proper balance or not. There are 2 services. Okay. Now, in your request, this information is there in one payload only, right? Now you are just validating. Now you want to use the same request after this 2 activity also. Same request you want to use, because when it is coming as a request, it becomes a payload, right? In P1.
Yep.
Now you invoke one validate service. Hey, validate this account, whatever information is coming account. Can you tell me whether it is a valid account? Now the second service, I'm saying, hey, can you go ahead and check whether the proper balance is there? Then I'll go ahead and I'll do the debit operation. Now for debiting, right, I need this P1, right? What amount he was asking for debit?
Definitely.
What account, right? Now once the validation is done, then only I'll go ahead and proceed with the transaction. Otherwise, I won't. If it is account is invalid, from here itself, I'll go back. Hey, your account is invalid. I can't do the debit operation or credit operation. In this case, what happens? If I say validate, and if this response returns as yes, account is valid, Now, if I go the default operation, what will happen? This complete P1 will get overridden by this response R1. I don't have information about the account and debit amount and the balance. Nothing.
Yep.
I just lost. Okay. To avoid that scenario, I could have done this way. Save this P1 into variable.
Yep.
Now use that variable here to pass on. Then use the same variable to use this here.
Yep.
Okay. But in that case, what will happen? Again, the response of, I am interested in response of this guy also, right? So I need to store that R1 into variable again, new variable. And this response of R2 also stored in variable. Then only I can keep track of, payload, response 1, response 2. Now I have simply one option here, right? At the advanced level, target, I can store that.
Add the
keep on adding.
Variable.
Keep on adding those variables,
because
and then finally you
appended.
collect it and consolidate output you can generate for your client.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah. Now I clear.
Yeah. So definitely. I was expecting that question, why we are doing. So there is a definite requirement. That's the reason that option is there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll stop.
I understand the scenario, but why and when to use this type of scenario? So yeah, definitely. Now it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stop here for today.
Okay.